Hi, this is Blossom Benedict. We're doing another Talk with the Author for Access Consciousness Publishing, and I'm here today with Shannon O'Hara, who wrote Talk to the Entities. And I just finished my most recent reading of this book. It's so fun and easy and lovely to get through. It's like pure stories. I so enjoy it.
Thank you. Yeah, that was actually, I never wrote it so that it would be an easy read, but I've gotten so much feedback that it's a really easy book to get through, and it's fun, and I sort of was like, wow, I'm glad that that's what happened, because I didn't really know what I was setting out for when I started.
Yeah. That was actually one of my first questions for you, is why you wrote this, or what you were looking to create.
It was one of those things where 15 different people said, why don't you write a book in like this period of 1 week, and I was like, maybe there's something to this. So I sat down at that point, and I'm really dyslexic, so writing a book, let alone reading a book, was like, and I just started with stories of my life, and I'm like, is this really of any interest to anybody? Now, it took me a long time to write the book, years. And number one, I had to learn how to write a book, but also number two, I had to really come to the awareness of what was the important content and why I really was doing this. And I would say I was really pushed by an energy and a lot of entities to write the book. And I think ultimately that was a huge part of where this was created from. And I just knew that I had to. And then I just made myself.
Well, I love how it's structured, because it actually walks through your life and your awareness with entities. And I found it really interesting how you talk about you always saw them, but the realization of how different you were. Can you talk a little bit about that piece of your journey?
Absolutely. Since this topic is so weird, right? And I think talking to entities, although it is becoming more and more popular in mainstream media, it's I think we're really on the cutting edge of the revolution of the change of consciousness in this particular area. But even with as popular as this is in mainstream media, it's still seen as a really weird topic. And most people, in general, if you say you talk to entities, they're going to look at you like, get away from me, or you're weird, or stop it. And that is the prevailing point of view, at least in Western culture. In India, it's a totally different universe, of course. But from the culture I grew up in, it wasn't something that was talked about around the dinner table. Well, it was talked around the dinner table in my family. But most families, it's not talked about the dinner table. And kids aren't really empowered to know what they know in the area, because as soon as they come to their parents with Mom, there's something in my room, Mom's like, stop it, stop talking about it, you're making it up, don't look at it, you know? And so it's we really aren't empowered to know what we know, nor are we given the space or the support to develop these sorts of sensitivities and awarenesses that so many people have.
And I don't know if everybody knows, but Shannon is Gary Douglas's stepdaughter.
Yep, that's right.
So you were raised with someone who was really encouraging.
That's absolutely right. And it's I was, and my mom too was also very open to it and always talked about it, and always talked about people who had just crossed over and how they were coming to say hello to her and stuff. So it was a vocabulary and a conversation in my house. If it hadn't have been, I would have had a really hard time. And I had a really hard time anyways, because I was still dealing with the rest of the world where no one was talking about it. And I'd be looking at somebody and I'd see all their spirits around them, and I'd just be like, what am I supposed to do with this, And so Talk to the Entities really grew out of the desperation to find a way to handle such severe awarenesses of entities, and also the inspiration of access consciousness, and that Gary Douglas really was to me, to find who I'd be and what actually is right about this, not what I was sure was wrong with me.
Wow. So how do you define entities, just so we're all having the same conversation?
Yep, so entities, if you look it up in an English dictionary, so we're just talking about English, all other languages, this is up for variation. In English, it's an energy that's defined, and that's why corporations are also called entities. So it's anything that has a definition, that has its own energy, its own personality, its own definition, and its own sense of being. So that's a business, a person, a building, a piece of music, and so on.
And the stranger ones to talk to are the ones that no longer have bodies.
Well, that's one small part of the world of entities. It's I always call it the kingdom of entities, because you've got people like you and me who don't have bodies anymore. And sometimes they're aware they don't have a body anymore, and sometimes they're not aware that they don't have a body anymore, right? So there's people entities. And then there's also nature spirits, and there's beings that are totally different, that communicate totally different and show up totally different, and they live here with us. And then when you take it a step farther into the communication of consciousness with everything, it is the talking to the entities of everything, talking to your business, talking to the work of art, talking to the book that wants to come out. So it becomes a communication of the consciousness of everything.
With all things. That's amazing. So one of the things that I love the most about what you're doing now with Talk to the Entities, it's really different than most mediums who are just channeling information for people.
Right.
You're really getting people to tap into their knowing and
That's right.
ability. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and thank you for asking this question, because I would say it's only really been within the last 6 months, and I think it would maybe be of interest to people to know that, like, I've been developing the Talk to the Entities curriculum, as I call it, for 10 years. So really with only in the last 6 months, I'm really like sort of taking the initiative to take a stance and be like, this is not actually about psychic mediumship. This is about something much bigger, which is people claiming owning what they know and actually starting to be willing to create the relationships with the spirits that walk on the earth with us. And so at first you deal with, it's like, I get all kinds that come to class. People who want to strengthen their mediumship skills, which this does, right? But that's not really the target. This isn't about you going away and being able to like be the voice for the spirits, which absolutely is a side effect and a part of this, but it's ultimately about creating a whole new world where the spirit world isn't shut out into the darkness. Because in order to not include and involve and deal with the spirit world, we actually as people shut off a huge amount of ourselves, because the spirit world is such a huge part of what goes on here. So they're everywhere, and it's like when you ask for help, someone comes. When you think your grandma's talking to you, your grandma's talking to you. It's like we've all got beings who are looking out for us, just waiting for us to let them into our lives to participate. And then there's also the darker spirits who are trying to control and trying to create difficulty and not fun stuff for people. And it's like, if we don't recognize that this is exactly what's going on, we then misdiagnose and mistreat so many psychological and physiological conditions that could be handled just by simply having a conversation with a spirit and embracing your own ability with them.
So where do you start with people who don't acknowledge they have any...
I would say I don't really have to start there, because most of the people that come to me are seeking something.
Right.
And so, of course, we use the amazing tools of access that can be used in any area to transform any issue. So in this one, we target it towards the spirit world. So it's like, what do entities mean to you? How many points of view, thoughts, feelings, emotions, weird stuff have you bought from others about entities, and will you destroy and uncreate all that? So we spend a lot of time handling all the misidentification, all the mislearning, all of the places where we learn to shut down and introvert when we're aware, because that's just what we saw around us. So we handle that, and then there becomes the sense of space and possibility where people actually start perceiving what they're aware of. And that's when the true fun begins, because you got to learn how to deal with all the spirits, and then the gifts that they bring and the contribution that they could be, and the way the world becomes this singing possibility where you're not alone and you're not crazy for hearing voices, and there is a world and a reality that very few see, but has such a huge impact on life here.
All of my molecules are like tingling when you talk about this. It's so crazy. And it's the first time I've actually heard you talk about talking to the entities being the molecules of all things.
Yeah.
I think that's really a special distinction.
And I really assert frequently that you can't just be aware of entities and not be aware of everything. Right. So as soon as you start listening to the entities, you're going to also start hearing the trees, and you're going to start hearing the rivers, and you're going to start hearing the thoughts of people's heads, and you're going to start hearing, you're going to start accessing a level of awareness that you no longer are cut off from the magical world that we live in.
Well, I personally keep poking Shannon for the next book, which might have more tools and curriculum in it. So if anyone wants to join me in turning this into a book, we could harass her a little bit.
Well, thank you. But also too, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about with the tools and the philosophies and the information, that's the classes, you know, and that's a huge body of work in and of itself.
Yeah. And you have developed beginning, intermediate, advanced, like you have a whole system you walk people through,
That's right. Yeah, and I wouldn't even say, I would say yes, I developed it, but it wasn't even me that it was like, I should make these systems. It was just sort of like, I was led to this is the beginning class, this is the intermediate class. And so it's worked out amazingly, and I'm just like, wow, what if this is just the beginning? And I really do see a future where we communicate with our deceased relatives, we stay connected to the people who are stepping out of bodies, we communicate with the beings coming in to be our children, where we take counsel with the spirits that will support us and that have amazing things to contribute to us, and we see the spirits that need to be sent away, and we don't pretend like they're not there, and we have the strength, the wherewithal, and the power within us to be the creator of a totally different possibility.
It's the lightness you have when you talk about this is also really amazing to me. So many people want to make entities so significant and scary and a big deal. And
I just could never do it because it just would make me want to not do this.
Right.
And it isn't a weird, scary thing. It's actually magic. It really is pure magic. And it's like, you got to look at it, it's like we've been so heavily conditioned against talking to entities. Like, why? It must be an incredible power.
Right.
You know, and it's like, if you could talk to spirits, would you know what happens after your body dies? Would you ever be able to be, you know, controlled or threatened by Judgment Day? Like the day you step out of your body, you're going to be judged and sent to heaven or hell. It's like if you knew what the spirits were experiencing, you'd know exactly what was going to happen. You could no longer buy the lie of that point of view.
Right.
And so on and so on and so on. And so it's like, again, people shut off so much of themselves to not be aware of spirits. And for some people, it's not as big of a thing in their lives as it is for others. And for people like me and so many other people, there are so many people literally suffering from this to the point of severe psychological disability and suicide and worse. And what I mean by worse than suicide is dying and then still being tortured by all of this, you know? So it's like, and I believe that I am truly one of the first of my breed, and that I'm bringing the spirit world into the light, where it can be seen, where we can touch spirits, and it starts to be where I start talking about this stuff, and it's the weird stuff that like everyone's like, creepy, weird, stop, but I'm like, no, I can't, I'm sorry. It's like, I know I'm really being driven, and I know that there's something that's possible, and it's usually far bigger, far more powerful, and far more far out than a lot of people tend to realize. And it's like, what could we create if we were willing to receive more from everything in the universe?
So is there one tool you'd like to share with people today that they can start playing with to...
Oh gosh. Well, it's one tool connected to 15 tools.
Of course.
I think it
Or
needs
question?
to be... I think it needs to be, it's like, what... I think this would be it. Think of that one time that you swore that was an entity. Like you either saw it when you woke up in the middle of the night, or you felt it touching you, or you talked about it, or you dreamt of it, and you were like, and then you pushed it away like, oh no, that mustn't be true. Or you didn't have a way of handling it, or a way of understanding it, and where to fit it into your like landscape of reality. So think of that time, recall that being, and begin to destroy and uncreate everything that you put up to rigidize against the conduction of energy between you and that spirit. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, bud, fuck, shirts, boys, and beyond. And really soften the solidities or the restrictions, the push away that we tend to do when spirits present themselves to us. So it's like, remember that really strong time, perceive all the walls, all the freak out, all the no that you did, and destroy and uncreate it. And really soften around all that. But now I warn you, if you soften around all of this, the spirits will become more evident to you. And that must be something that you're prepared for, and that you need to be quite vigilant in making sure that you don't freak out instantaneously. And you actually go, oh, hello.
And if you do freak out, Shannon offers classes that are live streamed, so wherever you are around the world. And she also has a bunch of Talk to Entities facilitators now.
That's right.
And they're all over the place and growing.
That's right. There's a lot of amazing people who know the tools, and they do the introduction and beginning classes, and the book is available. And I've got free stuff on the Talk to the Entities website and on the Access Consciousness TV website. And so it's like, I'm not trying to keep this stuff a secret, so please come find me. Please come get this stuff.
TalkToTheEntities.com is Shannon's website, and all of her facilitators are on there or will be on down there soon.
Will be when the new site
Coming
launches
soon
any day now.
to a theater near you.
Yes.
Yeah, and accessconsciousness.tv, you can always just search for Talk to the Entities, and Shannon has some awesome intros there. So thank you so much. This is like, my whole body is tingling. It's
Cool.
really amazing what you're creating in the world. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bossy.